Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the public forum on this 13th of December 2022. It's definitely the last one. We're enjoying a lovely storm outside at the moment, but in here we're ready to listen to people as part of our public forum process. I remind all people attending this meeting that it is being webcast on YouTube with audio and vision. A recording of the meeting is available on the internet and is required to be available for 12 months. Private recording, including taking photographs by members of the public gallery, are not allowed. This ruling is to maintain the integrity of the meeting's proceedings. Please ensure all devices like mobile phones are on silent mode. On behalf of Council, I welcome all people in the public gallery and observing live on the internet to this public forum. I now call on all councillors, if they have a conflict of interest, to declare it now, please. Councillor Bain.
I'd like to declare a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in the Oven Mountain matter in terms of my involvement with the Save Our Macleay River Incorporated Association, which has been involved, but I don't think it precludes me from being here at the meeting. I'm willing to take advice.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Are there any other declarations?
Yeah.
Councillor Patterson, please.
If you could give me half a second, I'm trying. While he's doing that, Mr. Mayor, I can declare a pecuniary interest in item 12.4 as it deals with my performance review, and when that item's dealt with, I will leave the chamber.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. And you're ready, Councillor Patterson?
Yeah, sorry. Technology. Yeah, the item outside. Yeah, sorry. Councillor, what numbers of signage strategy?
10.5.
Declare an interest in 10.5 as I have a business and has signs advertising my business in the Macleay.
It's a non-pecuniary, non-significant.
Not insignificant. Well, it's sometimes significant if people look at it.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. No other declarations? I now ask the General Manager, Mr. Craig Milburn, if you have outlined the guidelines for the public forum, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The right section. This opened earlier today. Yeah, each speaker is allowed 5 minutes to address council. This time is strictly enforced by the chairperson. Speakers at the public forum must not digress from the item on the agenda of the council meeting they have asked to address the council on. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the chairperson will ask the speaker to stay on the subject. If they fail to do that, the speaker will no longer be heard. A councillor may, through the chairperson, ask questions of the speaker, and the speaker will have 1 minute to answer those questions. The speakers of public forum cannot ask questions of council, councillors or council staff. Where an address made at the public forum raises matters that require further consideration by staff, the General Manager may recommend that the council defer consideration of the matter pending the preparation of a further report. When addressing the council, speakers at public forums must comply with this code and all other relevant codes of council. They must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the council code of conduct or making potentially defamatory statements. Where a speaker engages in conduct of the type referred to above, the General Manager of the delegate may refuse further applications from the person speaking in public forums. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We have 3 speeches today to address us, one from Mr. Pearson, and then we've got Mr. Melov, Anthony Melov is going to be speaking on 2 of the items on the agenda. So I'll ask Mr. Nick Pearson, speaking against item 10.1, Community Engagement Strategy and Community Participation Plan. Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Oh, pressing hold down. You didn't tell me that one. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, councillors and administrators. Look, I'll be fairly quick. I'll be talking about the community engagement strategy and public participation plan. Although I'm listed as speaking against that, that is not exactly correct. I'm only be referring to the need for one more amendment to the strategy document. If that's acceptable to councillors, if you've got no other issues with the plan from anyone else, well, I'm quite happy for it to go through to the keeper. I speak on behalf of the Kempsey Shire Ratepayers Residents Association, an affiliated group, and some individual folk that have spoken to me over the last month or so. I'm here today just to advocate for as a precursor to further action down the track to advocate to fix the deficiencies with the current live streaming system and results. So I'll be looking to arrange a meeting with the General Manager and Manager Thurgood just to get a clearer understanding of what those limitations are. As far as the strategy document goes, I believe that the following statement, or one very much like it, should be included up front in the strategy or at an appropriate place. And I read, the cornerstone of open and transparent governance, and by default good community engagement, is that members of the community have equal access to observe councillors engaging in the decision-making process during council meetings. At the moment, that's not quite the case. In lodging a submission and email exchanges with council staff at is it Giles or Giles? Giles Hardy. We had quite an amenable email exchange. The barrow I was pushing was partially successful, just a misunderstanding between the both of us on the scope and placement of such a statement that I've read out. Some changes were made to the documentation that's currently before you. A statement similar to what I've read out, unfortunately, was buried at page 55 of the 60-page planning document and buried away under the very limited heading of how submissions are considered. The issue is much broader than that. So I'm encouraged that Giles had at least attempted to make that sort of a statement, but I believe it's in the wrong place in the wrong document. I believe it must sit permanently within the strategy document. There was no time to make further amendments in our email exchanges before the council meeting. ASRA acknowledges that both the community engagement strategy and the code of meeting practice are not the appropriate documents to be prescriptive on the form of live streaming. I'm seeking council to establish a principle and articulate it in the community engagement document. And should you have no issues with any other issues with the community engagement strategy that's before you, I would think you could conditionally approve the strategy, but subject to including the statement that I read out a moment ago. So that's the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. Councillors, you now have the right to ask Mr. Pearson some questions, if you wish, on what he just reported on. Mr. Patterson, Councillor Patterson, please.
Mr. as well. Thank you, Mr. Pearson, for coming in today and representing the ratepayers. First question, the Kempsey ratepayers.
Residents
and ratepayers?
Non-ratepayers, Kempsey Shire Residents Association.
Residents, okay.
Which can include, obviously, ratepayers.
Okay, residents. Can I ask you a question on that? How many members is in that?
I
don't believe that's relevant to the presentation.
Yeah, that's not on the presentation at all, Councillor Patterson.
That's fine. 2, 3, 150, I'm not sure. The question through to the General Manager, who may be able to help on this question, which I'll put through to Mr. Pearson, is it a requirement for the council to video our meetings or just record them? Mr. General Manager?
Mr. General Manager,
No.
I will refrain from asking him to speak while he's doing something else.
The questions to the staff follow the questions and the presentation. The presentation needs to be completed first.
Okay.
So it's a totally separate thing. No, but you have a question for Mr.
Yes.
Pearson.
One more question, thank you. Why don't you agree with the current live streaming of the council meetings? What is it that you don't agree with?
Mr. Pearson.
When the live streaming first commenced a few years ago, the image on screen was a full screen image of councillors in chamber, exactly what you're seeing on the screen behind the mayor. For a number of reasons that have been explained to me, that has now been morphed into a small postage stamp image of councillors in chamber in one corner, and the full screen is the text of motions as they're being wordsmithed. To help answer that question, I didn't really come here today to beat the drum about live streaming. I just wanted to advocate for the inclusion of that motherhood statement in the community engagement strategy. But let me quote the council's website under your council meetings 2022. It reads, public council meetings are live streamed to the internet and recorded. Recordings are available for viewing on the Kempsey Shire Council's website on the video and live stream council meeting stations. I haven't, but if time's up, time's up.
Yeah, you've got a minute for your answer.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Pearson. Do we have any further questions from you, Mr. Councillor Patterson?
I hadn't finished answering.
Yeah, but you've had your minute.
Okay.
Is that how it works?
Okay.
Councillor Patterson?
No, thank you.
Nothing else? Councillor Wyatt, you had your light on.
Can I just confirm? Sorry, I just want to confirm that you're advocating to have that statement that you just read included up front in the community community engagement strategy.
Yes, whereabouts up front is
Yeah.
neither here. I shouldn't have used those words, but prominent in the community engagement strategy document.
And you mentioned as a guiding principle.
Correct.
Can I ask him to read out that statement again?
Yes, you could ask him. That's a question. Yes.
Can you please read it out again, if you can do so in under a
Happy
minute?
to. Statement reads, cornerstone of open and transparent governance, and by default good community engagement, is that members of the community have equal access to observe councillors engaging in the decision-making process during council meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Any further questions? Councillor Bain, and then I'll ask for further ones after Councillor Bain. Thank you.
Just for clarity, Mr. Pearson, are you, is your point to say that you're not actually observing councillors when the predominant image is the text? You would like to see the body language of councillors and how they respond. Is that what your point is?
That's the ultimate aim. Yeah, this inclusion of such a statement in the strategy is really a precursor to advocating for that. But KSRA needs to get a clearer understanding of what the current limitations are, both technically and the state government requirements that during COVID that made a change necessary to streaming of council meetings. One of the things that I believe contributed to the change to where we're at now is that there were a number of complaints by people unable to read the motions. So I'm a little bit confused as to exactly the mix of impediments that brought us to where we are now.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. A further question from Councillor Wyatt.
One more question. A little bit ignorance on my behalf. So prior to COVID, you could be at home and you could observe all 9 of us there.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that's on me, but yes,
Yeah.
the reverse of that, you could see what I'm observing here.
Okay, right. So
Yep, there you go.
So
Yep.
you can see roughly my body language.
Yep.
So you can see all of our body language and how we're engaging, right? And that was the screen prior to COVID.
Correct.
Thanks.
I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Patterson. Very quickly, Mr. Pearson, have you viewed other councils streaming at all and seen any differences to what we do?
I haven't done such research. I am aware that there would be a number of mechanisms to achieve the desired result, which may not be a full screen of councillors in chambers. There may be mechanisms to ensure that that each councillor is visible on a split screen basis. So although I initially kicked off this exercise a few weeks ago, looking to revert to what happened once live stream was introduced, I do accept that there might be other ways to skin the cat.
Okay, so my final question would be, have you observed at any time Armidale Regional Council's web stream?
No, I haven't, but I will make a point of doing that.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. I just got another question for you, Mr. Pearson. Do you understand or believe that in a council meeting, councillors make decisions on the agenda in front of them, and that the gallery has no say in those decisions during the meeting, and the meeting is just has minutes and it records the decision making of the council? So in actual fact, do you understand that people being able to see a decision being made by the face has no value on the actual decision? Does the decision be made whether people can be seen, their face can be seen or not be seen? But there's no value in it. Do you understand that?
I don't understand the question. However, I understood the first part. Obviously, people in the public gallery have no influence on the decision-making process. They're just there to observe. Whether you're attending in person in council chambers or whether you're looking at it live streamed.
Yeah. Sorry, that was just my question to Mr. Pearson, is whether you think that makes a difference in the decisions being made in council.
It doesn't impact the decisions, but observing councillors in the process of decision making can highlight how councillors interact and their body language and other behaviours. And I'm not going to go any further into that.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
So, Mr. Pearson, you're saying that in community engagement strategy, people of the community will be more engaged if they can see more of their councillors in operation.
Agreed, and I believe it's a matter of equity. People should be able to observe pretty much the same as what they would observe if they attended in person. It's just equal access.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Pearson. There seems to be no other questions, but thank you for your presentation this afternoon.
Thank you, councillors, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that dragged you folk out in this inclement weather.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Anthony Melov. He's speaking against 11.2, which is a notice of motion, Oven Mountain Pumped Hydro Project Community Consultation. Welcome, Mr. Melov, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks. And yeah, like Mr. Pearson before me, I'm not completely against that notice of motion. In fact, I commend Councillor Wyatt for the focus on community consultation. The Oven Mountain team is also committed to engagement, and we've been doing that since 2017. In fact, in some cases, even earlier than that. Our engagement efforts predate the formal commencement of the planning process, which began in later in 2020, and we think that demonstrates a commitment to early and inclusive consultation. As part of our consultation activities, we have, and this is a really boring long list, but I'm going to read it out. We've held community information sessions in Kempsey, Bellbrook, Willawarren, Lower Creek, Fredericton, Southwest Rocks, Hillgrove and Armidale. We've engaged with Aboriginal committees, stakeholders, landowners, service providers, local business. There's quite a long list of Indigenous stakeholders who we continue to engage with. And as part of that, we've drafted industry participation strategies that focus on education, skills training and the like. We've also engaged in a broad range of communication practices, including dozens of face-to-face landowner meetings with government agencies, and education service providers, including councils, TAFE, UNE, and Aboriginal employment agencies. We issue a monthly newsletter to well over 500 people. We print those newsletters and fact sheets on key matters. We have a website. We regularly update our social media channels. Just recently, we did a letterbox drop to over 2,000 residences in Kempsey and Fredericton. We have a toll-free project number, a project email. We sponsor a bunch of different things, including various regional shows and other measures. We're planning to sponsor Tour de Rocks next year, for example. We liaise with key community groups, including Save Our Macleay River, the National Trail Board, and others. We advertise in local newspapers, take part in radio interviews, and we've developed videos that explain and communicate the purpose and the scope of the project. Importantly, we have a community information hub, a shop front on Clyde Street in Kempsey, which is staffed Tuesday to Thursday, and that includes up-to-date and accessible project information. The Oven Mountain project recognises that consultation forms an integral part of the planning process, and to date our activities have been delivered in accordance with our SEERs, our planning directions basically, and it's anticipated that a public-facing community engagement plan will be formally required as part of any future conditions of approval issued by the Department of Planning and the Environment. We'll continue to engage with the community throughout the development of the Environmental Impact Statement, the EIS, and we'll hold further engagement opportunities, and that will also, again, highlight industry, skills, training and education initiatives. As it relates to the notice of motion, the Oven Mountain team is very supportive of engagement with the council. There are some items on that recommendations list that we can step up to and others that are quite difficult for us to meet. So, for example, we're happy to brief councillors on a quarterly basis, face-to-face or virtually. We would include timeline and key dates as part of that briefing. It is difficult, though, for us to commit to a public exhibition date for our EIS. That's not something that's entirely within our control. That's with the department. And as for item 2, yes, we're happy to provide timely briefings. That's fine. On item 3, a public-facing community engagement. Thank you. Public engagement strategy and plan will be required should we get approval as a condition of that approval, and we would obviously be providing that documentation at that point in time. That's all I've got to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melov. I'll now ask, are there any questions? And I'll ask the first question. I was just wondering, as the pumped hydro project is in the Armidale Regional Council area, what level of consultation has been going on in that area compared to the Kempsey Shire?
It's a similar level of consultation. We don't have structured briefings with councillors, but we did meet with them just last week when we were doing information sessions that started in Armidale and worked their way down to Southwest Rocks. So we don't have a quarterly briefing or that kind of structure, but we do brief the councillors on a semi-regular basis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Wyatt.
Thank you. I really appreciate, on behalf of us, I appreciate you coming and speaking. The 2 motions that I put up have resonated, and that was the intent. So I really do thank you. Like what sort of provoked this was a community meeting at the RSL. I thought, quite frankly, was awful. It might have been one of your first ones. I held this on for a few months, and then I thought after that I would eventually put it forward. I can see from what you've just said, if I had known that, I probably wouldn't have done this. So there is a disconnect somewhere. I'm not sure where that is. And I'm wondering, so I've got 3 questions then. Are we allowed to have a copy of your presentation? Are we?
He can give it to anyone he likes.
Because I just think that list is something that I really did not know about.
Yeah, not a problem.
It's now on the public recording.
Oh, yeah, written down? So go right word for word? Okay, that's all right. That's okay. And my second question is a bit about, I was trying to wordsmith this. How is that, like, the vibe of the community consultation engagement sessions reported in the EIS? And recorded as part of the overall consultation process. So of all of those quite a few consultations that you go to, is that recorded as part of the overall community consultation process with the EIS, or does the clock start when the exhibition process is, when the EIS is on public exhibition?
No, actually, the clock started quite some time ago, and the environmental impact statement will include a document called a social impact statement or a social impact assessment, which has been compiled independently by our consultant, EMM Consulting, that will seek to deal with these issues. There's another section of the EIS which I believe also goes into consultation.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear that, because I didn't like the RSL meeting, and I was wondering, because it was quite heated, and I was just wondering how much of that is actually recorded as a part of the community feel. But I'm assuming that was early on in your process. So that's all my questions.
That's a question. There's a comment at the end. Right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor White, you finished? Yes. Councillor Patterson?
I'm not sure if this question is allowed, but it is based on the Oven Mountain. Thank you, Anthony, for your presentation. What's your biggest challenge so far in delivering the Oven Mountain project? Is that allowable?
Yes.
Not sure where to start.
My ears are open.
Can you give me 2 minutes? I think this issue around community engagement probably has been one of our biggest challenges. And we've evolved with that. We started working on the project 10 years ago. Certainly one, and I'll talk to this next, one aspect of community engagement which has been challenging for us has been around Aboriginal engagement. There's a very diverse group of Aboriginal stakeholders, and we've been working really hard at that strategy. We started talking to that community about 10 years ago, but the diversity of that group continues to amaze me, and the diversity of not just the people but their opinions and where they're located. So I would say that that's one aspect. I could wax lyrical about COVID and access to site.
Mr. Mello, that's your time.
Yeah,
For 1 minute. So you have another question, Councillor Patterson?
Thank you. The company that you represent, Anthony, have you done this type of work before the Oven Mountain delivery?
I've been developing renewable energy projects for a quarter of a century.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Do we have any further questions? If not,
May I just ask
Councillor White, do you wish to ask another
yes,
question?
Please. Yes, please. The presentation that you just gave, is that on your website, and perhaps you could update that on your website?
Yeah, actually, I think in advance of this notice of motion, we did update our website with some elements of this in recognition of your concerns, Councillor Wyatt. But yeah, look, certainly we can look at that, and I can furnish you with a list of the things that I recited laboriously there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Mello. And as Councillor Wyatt will know, that these public forums, we are gaining information to inform councillors' decision. And if Councillor Wyatt wishes to amend her notice of motion anyway, she's allowed to do that, because she will be moving it and she'll take on board the information you've given her today. So thank you very much on that item. We're now going to ask you back to present on the next item, which is 11.3, notice of motion, Oven Mountain Pumped Hydro Project, Aboriginal Heritage Assessment and Consultation. Mr. Mello, you have 5 minutes.
I'll start with the same opening statement. Again, appreciate the notice of motion being raised by Councillor Wyatt, because cultural heritage matters and recognition of Dunghutti country are incredibly important to the team and the Oven Mountain project. Look, unfortunately, before I address the recommendation, I want to talk about something else that is in the purpose section of that notice of motion. It relates to the community meeting held by Save Our Macleay River on the 19th of November. So that was organised by SOMA. The meeting organisers did make it clear at the meeting outset that we had to leave early, but there was a quote in the purpose that I'm going to read out. The meeting went for about 2 hours. Representatives from OMPS attended for an hour only. There was lots of questions for the OMPS team, and it was unfortunate that they left early. I do want to address that. We did not want to leave early. In fact, on the 19th of October, a month in advance, and on the same day that we were invited to the forum, we emailed SOMA and said, is there any chance to move the meeting to accommodate the Saturday regional flight times? So the meeting time wasn't changed, and look, that's fair enough. Nevertheless, 3 members of the Upper Mountain team travelled up to the forum on a Saturday and did the best that they could. And look, frankly, I want to move on and make sure that all those outstanding questions are answered, but I didn't want to leave that issue unaddressed. As for the notice of motions recommendations, as I was saying a little earlier, Oven Mountain first met with the Thungati community in Bellbrook in 2013 and 14. Conversations were very introductory then. More meetings occurred in 2017, and the formal planning process didn't commence in earnest until late 2020. The Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Assessment, what we call the ARCHA, forms part of the planning process, and we are required to follow a process and a methodology that involves, for example, the nomination of registered Aboriginal parties. That process began later in 2021, and the Oven Mountain team recognised that the steps that we're required to follow are not always perfect, and we know that we could be more inclusive of the community, which is why we're engaging in all these other efforts. Indeed, Oven Mountain has done better than the required process in a number of ways. We completed a 5-week field study, which included very regular discussions with the RAPs, including the Thungati Lauk and its CEO at the time. We completed a 4-week archaeological test excavation process with the RAPs, who were initially at least accepted by the Thungati Lauk board. And in recognition of the importance of the cultural landscape and oral history, Oven Mountain has gone beyond the process to complete a cultural values mapping program, which involves many hours of interviews with elders and knowledge holders. It doesn't involve everybody, but we've done our best. So I'm hopeful that that report can contribute to the documented First Nations history of the area. The so-called ARCHA, including that values mapping exercise, will form part of the EIS. Everyone will get a chance to copy on that assessment when it becomes public next year. And at the same time, we recognise the need to do more than just follow a cultural heritage process. We're engaging more broadly with Aboriginal stakeholders, including the Dunghutti Elders, Macleay Valley Aboriginal Community Controlled Forum, Armidale Lauk and others, and we continue to meet new stakeholders. Just last week, we met several knowledge holders, some at our shop front in Kempsey, some at the information session in Armidale, and also at Bellbrook itself. We regularly go to Bellbrook and literally knock on doors to meet and talk with people. Moving forward, Oven Mountain has brought on board Troy Pickwick, a First Nations engagement advisor, and will continue to seek ways to directly engage with a very diverse group of Aboriginal stakeholders. And our increasing focus will be on education, skills and training opportunities. We're 2 years away minimum from commencing construction of this project. In summary, I encourage the councillors to hold off from implementing the notice of motion recommendations. Please just give us a chance to deliver that Aboriginal cultural heritage assessment that'll be in the EIS along with the values mapping, the one that exceeds those requirements. The ARCHA will also set out a need for additional cultural heritage assessment steps and plans. And in addition to that, during 2023, the Oven Mountain team looks forward to broadening the conversations with Aboriginal people, to listen to them and to do our very best to address all of their concerns. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mello. And now we have any councillors who wish to ask questions to gain more information before they consider the notice of motion tomorrow. Councillor Wyatt, then Councillor Patterson, please.
Thank you again. Thank you for that. You kind of answered my questions already. So this notice of motion was prepared in response to that other mountain on the SOMA meeting where the Aboriginal community raised all of their concerns. I feel it's my role as a councillor to be an advocate. So General Manager provided quite a bit of summary there as well. A couple of questions which I think you've already answered anyway, but your consultation is taking into account landscape approach rather than just tangible site-based here. So that, if there is, you find an object as heritage value, the landscape has heritage value. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. A second part is, is your consultation incorporating the spiritual connect and potential harm to landscape?
Councillor White.
That's a question.
So, sorry to interrupt, but you just asked a question.
And he answered it.
He nodded. We are on a live stream. We need a yes or
Should I say yes?
please.
Apologies, I nodded.
My apologies. I'm still trying to find my feet too.
No problem.
Can I ask my second question?
Yes, now you ask a specific question.
Question number 2. Is your consultation incorporating the spiritual connection and potential harm associated with works on country, not just the tangible, which I think you've answered?
That sounds like a fairly similar question to the first one, but the short answer is yes. The process doesn't require that we do it, but we recognise the importance, particularly in this area. The Macleay River is an important connection between the New England area and the coast. It's part of that songline. We're very sensitive to that. It's why we've done this cultural values mapping exercise. It's why we continue to talk to elders and knowledge holders, because there are a number of people who we missed as part of that values mapping exercise. And we've got more cultural values mapping or cultural heritage work to do. So we acknowledge it. I'm not saying I understand the complexity of it and the importance of it, but we continue to work on it, and we're doing that with professionals, anthropologists, archaeologists, and the like. And we're also sensitive to the confidential nature of a lot of these interviews. We interviewed, I believe, 15 elders and knowledge holders, and again, we've missed people, and I'm sorry for that. But that's many hours of interviews, and that's in a report. We're just working through how that can be made public.
Thank you for that. And I think you've probably already answered. You've got the answer to the third question as well. So is your consultation taking into account as cultural protocols around knowledge holders, cultural obligation, generation and gender?
Short answer is yes. And again, it's not me out there doing that work. I'm a project manager. We've got experienced team doing it. We're working with registered Aboriginal parties. Like I said, that's the process that we have to follow. And there are 19 of them. There were 14, and we accepted 5 more. And we're complementing that with our consultation that seeks to broaden that out, basically.
Yeah, thank you. So you've answered pretty much the reason why I put the notice up there, and when I'm talking tomorrow, I will explain, for those that don't know what I'm talking about, I will explain why I raise those questions in our council meeting tomorrow. So thank you.
Is that a question? No, that's a statement, yeah. We're only having questions at this time, Councillor White. Thank you. Councillor Patterson, please.
Thank you. Once again, I've got about 4 questions, and it's in relation to gathering information, and they're fairly simple, I suppose. It's up to you. Is the project you're proposing, the other mountain, is it being built in the Macleay Valley? Simple question.
It's been should we get a planning approval?
Yeah. Should you get a planning approval?
Yeah.
If
yeah.
It's being built?
So it's located in the Armidale Regional Council area in the Upper Macleay Valley.
Okay. It's not in the Macleay Shire.
There's no Macleay Shire, correction, like Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, righto. To the project, what need is the Macleay Valley to the project? The Macleay Valley, as in Kempsey Shire. Kempsey Shire.
Sorry, can you repeat that so I understand?
What to the project, what need is the Kempsey Shire Council to the project? Is it only access to the site?
The project is located in the Armidale Regional Council area. It will connect electrically to a grid that forms part of a backbone that runs through that Armidale area. So there's an electrical connection to Armidale, as well as it being physically located in that area. In terms of the connection to Kempsey, yes, the primary access is from a port to the Pacific motorway, to the Kempsey Road, to the site. But we also see the Kempsey Shire area being a valuable source of basically industry engagement. It's a 60 to 70% civils project, and we see that people living in the Kempsey Shire Council area can contribute to that.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
A couple more questions. Just simple questions. Will you be building anything, should you get a DA approval, in the Kempsey Shire that actually covers cultural heritage land?
We are in discussions, as you're probably aware, with Kempsey Shire Council about roads and some of the aspects of external road treatments on the Kempsey Road that will need to get essentially oversized, overmass vehicles to site. Now, most of those...
Excuse me, Mr. Mello, the question was about the actual notice of motion. What will be built in the Kempsey Shire? Correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Patterson, that would be part of the Aboriginal heritage. Yeah. Is there anything happening in our Shire with Aboriginal heritage that would be constructed by the team?
Believe it or not, I was working my way towards that. Right. The EIS, relative to the EIS, the answer is no. But more broadly, we will need to do some external road treatments. Now, we don't think that will involve any cultural heritage aspect, but should we have to widen a verge, do something of a minor nature like that, I imagine heritage processes might come into play there, and that may trigger a heritage issue. I don't know the answer to that at the moment, but as it relates to the EIS and the planning process that I've just been talking about, the answer is no.
Yeah, okay. And another question, have you, and you sort of nearly answered it before, have you made any headway in talks and discussions with the Aboriginal community about this project?
I would say most definitely. That doesn't mean that there aren't detractors, just as there are detractors within the broader community. One thing that we're trying to move beyond is the more recent cultural heritage assessment work, and into, I guess, a phase of our consultation that involves talking about longer term benefits of the project, education, skills, training, jobs. We don't want to overpromise, but we're seeking ideas from the community about how that might work. We've got some interesting housing initiatives. I could talk about this for a while, yeah. But we are most definitely making headway. Doesn't mean we haven't got a while to go, yeah. But it's the reason why we've got a First Nations engagement advisor on board now, and it's also the reason why we're seeking to bring on more people that can help with that.
And one final question.
Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, has the Armidale Shire had similar questions to you about Aboriginal heritage in that area, because you actually will be building the project if you get a DA approval in the Armidale Shire?
I think it's fair to say that there hasn't been quite the same emphasis on cultural heritage matters in the Armidale Regional Council area as down here. I think you could probably think of why that is. There is a very strong community connection down here. The community in Bellbrook is very closely connected to the project. So while it's in Armidale, clearly that community is not in Armidale, it's in the Kempsey area. But that said, we Anawan people and Gumbunga people have a connection to the country as well. And so we do talk to them, and we have had some questions from councillors about that. Generally speaking, and this is a generalisation, the New England area is a little more focused on renewable energy projects in general. There's a lot more going on in that way up on top of the New England there. It's the heartland of the renewable energy zone. So there are solar farms, wind farms, many different proposals being put out there that they generate discussion around cultural heritage. But to some extent, for Armidale Council, we're in a far-flung region, far-flung corner of the council, and we have a very strong connection to the Kempsey area.
Thank you, Mr. Mello.
Thank you for answering those questions. It really helped gain some information. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Are there any further questions from any other councillors who wish to gain some more information from Mr. Melov? If not, I thank you for your attendance today, Mr. Melov. It's very informative, and that will bring to close this public forum. So I thank both of our speakers who spoke on 3 subjects. Congratulations and well done.
Couple of minutes.